Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much for coming on my YouTube channel Think Big Learn Small. First of all, I would like to thank you all for those 1000 subscribes, and please like, comment, share and subscribe my content, as it helps me and motivates me to create more of this. So without further ado, let's start our today's discussion, and the topic of our discussion today is symbolic interactionism, and it is going to be an extension of our previous discussion of sociological theories. And if you haven't watched the last few videos, and I will provide the link of those videos in the description box below, and you can check out those videos as well from the eye icon that comes on the top right side of your video. So we will discuss about the few basic tenets of this theory. We will discuss about its introduction, then we will move on towards its basic propositions or the basic assumptions of this theory. Then we will discuss its core strengths and the criticisms that are leveled against this theory. So let's move on. First of all, let's start with the introduction of this theory of symbolic interactionism. Well, this theory was pioneered by a famous American sociologist, psychologist, and philosopher, George Herbert Mead, but the term symbolic interactionism was coined by another sociologist named as Herbert Lummer. Symbolic interactionism is a frame of reference basically for looking at how humans create an understanding of their world from symbolic interactions, and in turn how those symbolic interactions affect their own behavior. It's a micro level theory, and by micro level I mean that it looks at the interaction at an individual level and answers how those meanings affect their basic motivation and their actions. So that was a brief introduction of this theory of symbolic interactionism, and after that we will look at the basic propositions of this theory. Now let's move on to them. Now let's discuss the basic propositions of this theory. According to Herbert Lummer, there are three basic propositions of this theory, and these three basic propositions are that humans or individuals of the society develop their own meanings for certain things, and every individual in a society have got its own meaning about a certain thing or a certain trend. Now let's move on to the second proposition. So the second proposition is that these meanings are also inferred from the interaction of the individuals in a society. Then the third proposition is that those meanings are changeable and they change with time in a society within an interpretive process. So these are the three basic propositions of this theory. Now let's move on to the core strengths of this theory. Now let's look at the strengths of this theory. So the first strength of this theory is that through those symbols and their sheer meanings, certain behaviors that are recurrent in a society can be predicted. And another important strength of this theory is that it looks at the small scale interactions of individuals and looks at how these small interactions creates meanings, and in turn they affect the whole behavior of a society. It recognizes that the perception of reality is not constant and it changes with time, and it also says that the social environment in which an individual is present is an learning environment. And the last strength of this theory is that it gives an importance to the individual of a society and looks at it as an active creative participant, which helps create the behavior of a society, not a passive member of a society that in the previous theories of sociology an individual was an individual was looked at, and that is these are the core strengths of this theory. Now let's move on towards the other slide. In the last, we will discuss about the weaknesses of symbolic interactionism. So the first weakness of this theory is that symbols may be interpreted incorrectly, as we know that these symbols are highly subjective in nature, so they can be interpreted differently by different group of peoples. And the second weakness of this theory is that it is very difficult to objectively test this theory in the real world, as it deals with the interpretations, and they are very subjective in nature, so difficult to test this theory as well. Another weakness of this theory is that it overestimates the power of individuals. And how it overestimates? Because most of the humans inhabit world not of their own making, and there are already some preconceived ideas that they inherit in a society. So the fourth weakness of this theory is that it neglects the emotional dimension of human conduct, and it focuses on the strict hierarchy of logical behaviors in interpreting meanings and in creating different meanings. So the last weakness of this theory is that it is not applicable to large scale social structures. Of course, it helps in understanding society in a micro level perspective, but not all of its application is applicable on large scale society. So we cannot really interpret this theory when we cannot interpret using this theory the large scale social structures that are present right now in our society. So these were a few weaknesses of this theory, and I hope you like this lecture. Kindly please like, comment and share my video. Thanks for your time. Allah Hafiz.